Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Erin and today is Book Review Friday, and I am extremely excited to talk about today's book. This book that we are talking about today surprised the absolute crap out of me. I did not expect to feel the way I do about this book. We'll get to that. This is Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates. As you can tell on the bottom, it says a black winter novel. Now, me being me, I was walking through Barnes & Noble, and as a horror lover, Barnes & Noble is not the easiest place to navigate for horror because they don't have a horror section, at least not in the Barnes & Nobles I've ever been to. The horror is mixed in with the fiction, which isn't a big deal, but it is when you're trying to find books that are horror. So I picked this up, read the back, and I was like, yes, I need this. But silly little Erin didn't realize that this is a series, or it's going to be a series. I don't think the second book is out yet, which is slightly annoying for me, but yes. So this is not a singular book. Maybe there will be a trilogy, maybe it'll be a series. I'm not really sure. Anyways, thought I would just get that out of the way because this is not one novel. This is going to be multiple. But anyways, in case you wanted to know, there you go. So let's talk about the cover. It's got a creepy baby doll eye there covered in snow, and the words are like blood red, which I actually think is really cool looking. The baby doll is very creepy. I don't like dolls, so yeah, it's pretty cool, interesting cover, and I like it. Okay, so let's get into the summary because boy oh boy do I have a lot to say. This might be a long video. The book begins with Claire, who is the main character, driving in an intense blizzard. She's on the phone with her sister Beth, and Beth is telling her to turn around. It's not safe. She needs to be careful, but she should not keep driving. Claire tells her sister not to worry and that she's going to be just fine. The book then shows you what happened earlier that day, and it explains that Claire is on the way to her Aunt Marnie's house. She's going to pick up her Aunt Marnie so the two of them can travel to Beth's house and stay in her bunker. Something strange is happening in the world and no one knows what's going on and they can't explain it. All that they know is they need to take shelter immediately. Back to the present moment, Claire ends up in a car accident. She awakes in a strange bedroom with a man standing in front of her looking out the window. She begins panicking, suspecting that this man has kidnapped her and that he's going to kill her. She takes a look around the room and sees objects that she can use as a weapon for self-defense, and she decides to make a run for one of the weapons. However, when she tries to make a run for it, she collapses due to her injuries. She awakes a little bit later to find the man sitting right next to her bed. He explains that his name is Doran and that he found her bleeding out from her car accident, and he took her inside his mansion, which is in the woods. He also told her that he tried to phone for an ambulance, but he could not reach them because the phones are down. She obviously does not believe him or trust him just yet, but she keeps these thoughts to herself. Claire has no memory of what she was doing driving in the blizzard, what happened that morning, or the accident at all. She has no memory of anything. She does remember that there is something inside of her car that will help her get out of this mess, so she decides to make another run for it. She is able to sneak away from Doran and ends up outside of the house. However, the weather is so bad and her injuries are not great that she ends up collapsing in the snow. Doran helps her once again, and she finally decides that maybe he isn't a psycho murderer. She then decides to trust him and tells him that inside her car is a shortwave radio and she can contact her sister that way and they could get some help. They decide that once she heals up and the weather stops being so chaotic, they will try to make the 1-hour journey back to the road where her car is. Doran and Claire actually start to form a friendship because they are isolated and stuck in this house together, and they start relying on one another for companionship and they really just start leaning on one another. However, Claire starts seeing disfigured people people inside the mansion. Doran never sees these disfigured people, so he tells Claire that he thinks she's hallucinating. Then one day, Doran and Claire get into a really big fight, but this fight leads them to find out they are not as alone as they thought they were. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about the plot and the synopsis, and yeah, that's all I'm going to tell you, because after that point, everything starts getting really intense and crazy, and the plot really thickens. When I first started reading this book, I really thought it was going to be a Misery by Stephen King-esque book. I was mistaken. It is nothing like Misery, but in a good way. I'm glad it wasn't like Misery. I do love Misery though. That's a great Stephen King novel. So let's talk about the characters. Doran is probably my favorite. I love him. He's kind of weird. He's very odd, but in a really quirky, cute kind of way. He's kind of lovable because he's so weird. I mean, I looked up his name because I wanted to know if I was pronouncing it right, but when you look it up, his name actually translates to strange, which makes a lot of sense. He is a strange guy, but I think it makes him super lovable and likable. I also thought Claire was a good character. I think she's pretty quick thinking. She comes up with really good plans, and she seems to think on her feet quite a bit. She isn't too helpless, but she does rely on Doran for a lot. But I don't fault her for that because of the situation they are in. I personally think I would be the exact same way that she is. The situation that they are in is very complicated, and I personally think I would act similarly to her if I was in this situation, so I can't fault her for being a little helpless and relying on Doran a little bit more than some people would probably like. I think she is that typical kind of needing to be saved sometimes, that, you know, that trope in novels where the girl is a little helpless. I don't think it's overdone to an extreme amount, but she is semi that helpless trope. But again, I can't fault her for it because I personally think I would react the exact same way that she does. That's my personal opinion. Of course, I'm sure some people hate her character and think she's really annoying, but I personally understand where she was coming from. But overall, I actually really liked her character, and I did end up liking her throughout the whole book. This is a slow burn novel. If you do not like slow burn novels, you might hate this. I usually don't like slow burns. I like very fast-paced books most of the time, especially in the horror genre. I feel like if it's not boom, 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 I get distracted very easily. However, I really liked this plot, and I liked the characters, and I liked the story, and I liked everything that happened. So I was not bored or annoyed at any point in the novel for it being a slow burn. But again, that's a personal preference. Some people just will hate it for that reason. If you have not figured it out, this book is an apocalyptic horror. Now, I hate apocalyptic horror. I am not a fan of apocalypse type situations. I just don't understand the hype in the horror genre for apocalypse type plots. But I really, really liked this plot. I don't know why, and I don't know if it's because the apocalypse was just enough. It wasn't too overwhelming or too in your face, but it was there, and it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't the main point, but it was at the same time, if that makes any sense. I know it's kind of hard to understand. If you read it, you know what I'm saying, but it's different than other apocalypse type horror books, and I appreciate that as someone who doesn't like apocalyptic plots. I'm also going to let you know right now, this has a big subplot of romance. This is a heavily romanced horror book. Some people don't like their horror and their romance mixed. I'm personally a huge fan of the two mixed. I love romance and I love horror, so when they come together, I'm a happy camper. It gets 2 thumbs up from me. I love a bit of romance. This is kind of heavily romance though. It's not just a little bit here and there. It's actually quite a bit, which I actually really liked. I thought it worked really well in the horror aspect. I think it helped a lot and I appreciated it, but I know not everyone will, so I wanted to give you a heads up. If you don't like horror and romance mixed together, you might not like this book. Also, this book is labeled a horror book, and I am referring to it as one. But I will say that I think this book teeters on the edge of horror and thriller, and in my personal opinion, I think it leans more towards the thriller genre than the horror genre. I didn't find this book necessarily scary. I did find it captivating and it did keep me on the edge of my seat. I don't think it's necessarily scary though. But with that being said, I did really enjoy this book and I do highly recommend it. Maybe if you're not super into horror and you are not like a scaredy cat, but you get scared kind of easily, I feel like this would be a good introductory book because it's not too scary, it's not too horror, it's more romance thriller in my opinion, but I know that the apocalyptic element is what qualifies it as a horror book, so maybe if that sounds like something you would like to check out, you might consider those genre possibilities. I loved the ending. I thought the ending was fantastic. I think it makes complete sense that there is a second book coming out. I loved every second of it, and honestly, the second half of the book kept making me go, oh my god, what? Wait, what? Wait, whoa? Like, and I just had to keep reading it to find out what was going to happen because there was just so much happening and it was so crazy and so, I don't know, it just kept me needing to read more, and I love when books do that. I also really enjoyed her writing style. I looked up a bunch of her books and I really think I need to check out way more than just this one because I really liked this book. I really liked this book, and if all her books are similar to this, then man, I might find a new author that becomes one of my absolute favorites. I don't know, this book, there's just something about it. I loved every second of it. There wasn't a point where I was frustrated or irritated or I just wanted to stop reading. There was no time that I felt like that, which I love because sometimes that happens to me a lot where I just want the book to end. I just can't keep reading. It's just frustrating. It's just an annoyance to read. And I did not feel that one time in this book. So if you can't tell, I really liked this book. I really recommend this book. If this sounds like something you would like, I highly recommend checking it out. It's fantastic. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Chef's kiss. Mwah, loved. It was perfect. Loved it. One of my favorite books that I have read in 2020 so far. Okay guys, yeah, so that was kind of a long book review. I feel like I don't do that long of book reviews, but sometimes I just have a lot to say, and this was one of those books where I just had a lot to say and I needed to tell you all my full thoughts. But this video is over now, so I'm done rambling. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know what kind of content you are enjoying from me. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we can become friends and talk about books and horror and makeup, and it'll be lots of fun. And with that being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!